on this episode of The Honest Mechanic.
Unfortunately, you're in that boring class, that boring car class. There's nothing.
Don't tell me that.
Let's be honest. 4 kids, everybody has to jump in. Mm-hmm. You have to be away from them jumping in, but you just don't want a minivan. Understandable. So they have to be able to operate everything on their own. Mm-hmm. And that's key. Big trucks, Suburban, stuff like that, they got to climb over seats, la-di-da-di-da. No, you want something when they open up that back door, that back seat moves up so the 2 small ones can get in the back, and the other 2 can get in the front, and everybody knows their routine.
Check it out. You're listening to The Honest Mechanic with our featured mechanic, Todd Kemp.
Welcome to The Honest Mechanic. Today we have Todd Kemp with us. He's our honest mechanic and wanted to have you talk a little bit, give a little bit about your background, Todd. How long you've been working on cars and what do you do now?
I've been working on cars officially since I was about 8 years old. Long time. Became a master mechanic at about 18 years old. ASE qualifications, various different aspects of cars, mechanics, air conditioning, electrical, so on and so forth. Been in the dealership in parts logistics, sales, not particular car sales, but parts sales, and various other aspects of dealership and parts procurement process.
Since this is our first episode, I wanted to bring in my situation about a recent purchase that I made on a BMW X5. It was a 2012 diesel engine X5, and it was only 60,000 miles on the car. I did a Carfax on it. It seemed pretty clean. And then when I went to the dealership, they gave us their checkup and everything seemed right. So, and it was only for $16,000. So I checked the engine, I checked everything. I don't know much about cars, so I'm going in there. And once I purchased it, maybe about 2 hours later, the transmission light came on. So I had to take the car back. And of course, they're saying there's nothing wrong with the car. So a week later, I took it to a BMW certified dealership. And then they told me I needed a new transmission. So
wow,
I recorded everything. So they had the dealership had no choice but to take the car back because it was like within 2 weeks. But I guess my question for you, Todd, what did I do wrong?
Well, buying a car is definitely one of the most painstaking and nerve-wracking processes anybody can do. And then you sit there and contemplate new, used. Well, when you buy a used car, you're buying someone else's vehicle. You're buying someone else's problems. You're buying someone else's issues. You drive a car, the car at BMW, for instance, it was driven for 60,000 miles. I'm sure it looked perfect. It was a beautiful vehicle. But here's 3 reasons why people trade in or get rid of a car. Either A, it was repossessed. Mm-hmm. B, the lease was up. Mm-hmm. C, they just wanted something different, which doesn't happen very often because people hang on to cars because they're a large purchase. Mm-hmm. Or D, their family grew and they had to get something bigger or smaller or midlife crisis, they wanted something faster. So those are the main key reasons. So when you get into a car, when you start thinking about buying a used car, don't walk into a dealership and say what you want. You walk into a dealership and you have to have an idea of what type of vehicle you want. But before you even go to the dealership, you have to look at everybody's vehicle, different options, calculate a budget, And then also you have to add into that budget the cost of owning the car. And the cost, when there are many different ways of putting the cost of owning a car. You buy a car, it's 5 years old, it's got 60,000 miles, 6 years old, 60,000 miles. Mm-hmm. What does that car need? Every car comes with a manual. Nobody ever reads their manual.
Nope.
The manual is directions for baking a cake. It has everything that the manufacturer wants you to do at that particular time to make sure that that car runs soundly for their specified life expectancy of a car. And that's the best way to put it. It's a recipe for baking a cake. If you don't do it right, something goes wrong.
Don't you think 60,000 miles is a little early for a transmission to fail?
Depends on the vehicle, depends on the complexity of the vehicle. 60,000 is a little early, and it depends on what the vehicle has been doing. There are probably 4 or 5 major transmission manufacturers, and everybody doesn't get it right the first time, and everybody's not good at it. But what happens is you have engineers, you have engineers, and you have designers that want, and then also we call CAFE people, corporate average fuel economy, bean counters who want to make sure that their car gets a certain amount of miles per gallon. Right now, everybody's trying to get more mileage out of a car, more miles per gallon. So what do? You go and add another gear. 10 years ago, every car, you had a 4-speed transmission with overdrive. That was normal, standard. Nobody had anything different. Now you've got 6, 8, 10-speed transmissions. And each time you add the more complexity to it, it's like a fine watch that's lubricated to perfection with very fine holes, small. It's kind of like a grandfather clock that if everything and every spring isn't in the right place, something's going to go wrong. So if BMW tells you change the fluid every 15,000, every 30,000, under severe driving conditions or standard driving, whatever the service manual requires it, if you don't do that, you then get gunk and excessive wear, fluid breakdown, and that can cause excessive wear on the transmission, which will then make it fail prematurely.
So if I look at a Carfax and it says that it seems like it was regularly scheduled maintenance, I shouldn't be expecting a transmission to fail.
No, you shouldn't expect it to fail. You shouldn't expect anything to be wrong with a vehicle with only a few years of age on it, other than maybe the radio volume switch doesn't work, because that's the one thing you use, or the window switch, because those are the two things you use the most. Outside of that, but every car is driven differently. And you have no idea about how this car was driven before then. So the only thing you have to do is weigh the risk of, has this car been serviced properly? And that's all you can go by, which once again, you compare the records on the Carfax with the records on the service, the scheduled maintenance.
Okay. Real quick, you were telling me there is a way that before buying a car, you could tell the car dealer, I want to take it to another mechanic for them to check it out. Is that really feasible? Are they willing to say, yes, go ahead and do it?
Any credible, reputable dealership, and then there's different ways dealerships work. You got to look at, when you go to a dealership, what you're looking at. When you ride down dealership row and you see all these pretty cars that are relatively newer sitting on the lot, you pretty much know that dealership they either bought or traded in. They went through all the cars and picked out the creme de la creme. Mm-hmm. They want to make sure that their reputation is not tarnished by selling substandard cars. The reason the dealership does that is because they know they have technicians there, they have people to go through these cars, so on and so forth. Next type of lot is a B lot, which buys cars, fixes them up that maybe have been in wrecks, total losses, cars that still have equity in them, but they can get at a wholesale price and make a few grand off of them. Then you have C lots, which are usually your buy here, pay here lots. They kind of govern, they're not governed by the same rules. They use baseline state laws and guidelines. It's really caveat emptor at that point. You really have to look at the car. You have to check it out. But any dealership you go to, and it's happened to me recently, you go to a dealer, you buy a car, you want to take it to that particular manufacturer's service department. Yeah. And not the same dealership you just bought it from, because a dealership, when they buy a car, they want to put as little into it as they possibly can and sell it for the most they can. Yep. So you go to the dealership, if you like a car, you ask them, do you have a 5-day, you can sometimes even ask them if they have a trial period. Hey, I want to drive this car for 3 days and then have it checked out. Mm-hmm. Is that something that you're willing to do? Usually on higher end cars or cars of value, they will let you do that because they want to get that sale. 90% of the time, if you go through those steps, you're a captive audience. You're gonna buy that car. Mm-hmm. So as long as they can finance you and they know they can finance you, they'll go ahead and let you do that. Or take a demo or something like that. They have ways to do that. But any car you buy, you immediately, before you buy it, you ask if you can take it and have it independently inspected. And what you ask for when you take it for an independent inspection to a dealership, you ask them to do an service evaluation. And what they're going to do is they're going to look at all the wearing parts. They're going to look at the engine codes. They're going to look at the condition of the car from an angle that you're not able to look at it. They're going to put it up on a lift. They're going to look underneath. They're going to look at the body. They're going to see what's been repaired, replaced, covered up, and they'll alert you to, hey, this side has been an accident. This has been repaired prematurely for whatever reason. This is non-original parts. These are original parts. And those are things that help you make your decision to say, hey, look, this car needs $3,000 worth of work. Let's split this $3,000 and you give it to me for $1,500 less. You have a bargaining chip. If they don't allow that, walk. Mm-hmm. Whenever you walk into a dealership, always be prepared to walk away because they want to keep you at that table. They want to make sure that you're happy, and we all want to bring somebody with us. But once they get you into the finance office, they realize that they want to tune out the other person that may say, no, this is not a good idea, because that's where actually the add-ons start happening in the finance office. I told a guy at a tire shop today, he was complaining about how much a new set of tires cost. And he's like, what can I do? I said, well, you can get a horse and a buggy, and you still got to grease the axle. You still got to fix you still got to keep the wheels conditioned, and they're made of wood, and the ride's not going to be that comfortable. But there is an option. And he was an older guy, and he's like, yeah, you're right. So, we do complain about our cars, but we have a love for our cars. And as Americans, America wouldn't be America without cars. That's where actually the add-ons start happening in the finance office. Right.
And I was so anxious. I was just so frustrated because I had a Cadillac. It was a 2002, and it was breaking down. So I was in desperation mode. Mm-hmm. I was like, I need another car. And so, reason just went out the door. And I knew I wanted a BMW. And I don't know much about BMWs, but I knew I wanted one. And then when I started going to different dealerships, they were really trying to sell me on leasing instead of purchasing.
Okay. Leasing is a fun way to get into a vehicle that you can't afford. Ultimately, you can lease. We watch TV all day long. Cadillac Escalade, $5,000 down, $1,000 a month, and you're driving around in a Cadillac Escalade. Hey, that sounds like something I can do. Because when I went to the Toyota dealership for a Camry, they told me $650 a month and $1,000 down, and I could buy a 60-month Toyota Camry, a 60-month program to buy a Toyota Camry. Well, that seemed a bit expensive. What happens with leases is they know how much they can make off this vehicle before it completely depreciates. So luxury cars depreciate at a faster rate than standard common cars. So what they want to do is they want to get all of the cost of manufacturing that car, the cost of the administration cost out of that car as quickly as possible. And that gets a car that they're producing off of their lot. So leasing is for someone who wants to have the latest, greatest, who doesn't care about the cost per month being toward an ownership. You have some people that want to carry debt, that need debt in order to feel substantiated, unfortunately. But what happens is you never own a vehicle. So at any given time, it's theirs. If the car is in an accident, it gets totaled, it's theirs. You go back and get another one. They pay that one off. Everybody's happy. Doesn't cost you anything. But you still have to start that process over. So now you have to have $5,000 more to put down and another $1,000 per month to get a replacement vehicle. Anything that happens to the vehicle is your responsibility. If you don't total the car and you have an accident, that vehicle's depreciated. Sometimes they can charge you with those penalties. You have to be aware of any and all maintenance that you're responsible for with a lease. But in some people's case who don't drive a lot, who also too, mileage is another thing. You only get a specific amount of miles to drive a lease vehicle. Usually it's 36,000, it's 24,000, depending on the length of the lease, 10,000 to 12,000 miles a year. That makes sure that the resale value on that car is up to par when you give it back. So that's the pros and cons of buying. But when you buy a car, the main thing to do is find something that you love, because you're going to be paying. You're making a decision for an extended period of time. You're making a very long-term decision. So you drive it. If something you don't like, drive another one, drive another one, drive another one, till you find that one that fits you the way you want to. Be ready to make compromises. They're gonna put forth the one in front of you with all the bells and whistles. A car perfect example, Dodge Durango, can go from $27,000 to $63,000. It's the same vehicle, but essentially all of these add-ons, all of these pieces to the puzzle increase the price of a car. Another example, cost of a Ford F-150, very popular. One is sold every minute. It can go from $26,000 for a base model up to $63,000 for a King Ranch. So you're getting the same truck with the same bed, with the same doors, with the same types of engines, but your add-ons are really changing your life as far as what you're paying per month, what you're going to have, is the equity going to be in the vehicle 5 years from now. So you make a lot of decisions when you buy a car, and research. Yeah. But mainly research is what you love worth buying. Yeah.
But the car buying experience has changed. Whereas you just don't randomly go to a lot and say, oh, I'm looking for a car. It's like now we're looking online and say, okay, I want this car.
Well, nowadays, yes, we do have so many options as far as searching for a vehicle. You literally have the world's inventory at your fingertips. I have traveled over 500 miles to pick up a car sight unseen, but it was exactly what I wanted. Well, when you do that, you're considered a captive audience to a dealer. So you have to be careful about what questions you answer, what questions you respond to. Key things not to do when you walk into a dealership, no matter what you do. Never say how much you want to pay a month. The moment you say how much you want to pay a month, they want to bring you up by $100 a month. But with the internet, and also too, the internet is tricky because they will do what they consider as internet pricing and then do a bait and switch.
Yep.
The internet price may not be a cash sale price. It may be a finance price. So with it being a finance price, they're going to make their extra money on the back end of buying a car, of the car buying process by being they're going to make money in financing. When you go buy a car, you have to look at what you're doing. You're actually taking a balloon, one of the long balloons that you turn into and you squeeze one end, the other end gets big. You squeeze the other end gets big. So what happens is no matter what happens in that process, they know how much they need to make, and they're not going to go under what they need to make. So no matter what you do, they're going to keep that price where they need it to be. When you see a sticker price, you go to a dealership, the great thing you can do is you can build a car online with all the options you want. And then you can see what dealerships have that in their inventory. When you do so, you can see exactly the options you want, exactly the options you don't want. When you do that, now you go to a dealership and say, hey, I see you have this blue Ford F-150 without a trailer hitch, la-di-da-di-da. Okay. You go look at it. It's $43,387 at this dealership. You also saw another one down the road. So you go look at that one and the sticker price is $42,997. You're like, how did it go up and down? And it's the exact same product. The dealership can literally sit there and type in whatever number they want to pop up on that sticker. So you have to do your research as to find what you want, what the price of those options are, and then be an informed consumer. You got TrueCar, you've got Carvana, which kind of makes it, you've got not Toro. There are a couple other online car buying services that help you figure out the cost. But the main things in research of buying a car, you go to Consumer Reports. JD Power is kind of, you get the awards, but you don't exactly get where they got the awards for them. But perfect example, Consumer Reports, just reading a reliability report of the new Maserati. It's the most unreliable car on the road. It got ranked 17 out of 17.
Wow.
So it's at the bottom of the list. In resale, I think it was out of 71, it was 59 or something like that. So you do have to really research a couple things. Why you're buying the car, what you want in the car, what you're going to do with the car, and can the car handle what you're going to do? I get a lot of buddies, I want to buy a pickup truck. Okay, do you want to burn 10 to 12 miles to the gallon every day? Well, it says it gets 16. My car said it gets 15 miles to the gallon. I haven't seen more than 11 in the last year. So no matter what it says, if your driving style doesn't fit that, trust me, that'll become a cost that you may not have expected. So you have to really dig in and take some time and look before you walk into a dealership. And when you go into a dealership, the best way to be non-pressured to buy is to say, hey, I just want to see how this car fits me. And I'm not ready to buy.
That's good.
I want to see how it fits me. I'm looking at other models, and they're going to come with well, let's get this done today. Let's do this right now. All you need is your last check stub. You don't have to trade in with you. Just tell us what it is, and we'll estimate a number. And and all that sounds good because once you see it, you smell it, you want to buy a new car. Mm-hmm. But be an informed consumer.
Yep.
Walk in, get the brochure, go home and pick the things you do want and don't want. If you've never towed a trailer, don't buy the trailer hitch package. That's an extra $1,000 that you can pay off your tax, title, and license with.
Yep.
If you don't if you use GPS on your phone, don't get sucked into a GPS system that's now going to cost you $500 every 3 to 5 years to get updated, and after 5 years, it's considered as obsolete. So you have to. Do you want remote start? Do you really not need remote start? And with that, they kind of feed you into another $3,000 package. Do you need these things? Because if you get something you don't need, it's going to break down. It's going to cost you in the future, and you're going to be paying for something that you really in the first place didn't have to pay for in the beginning. And be in control. Mm-hmm. Say, hey, that's not how I want this to go. And either they'll convert or they'll be pushing you and you walk out the door.
Yeah.
And you can always say, I'll come back. Don't be complimentary to them because they'll never be complimentary to you when it comes down to price.
That's good.
And unfortunately, but human nature is to be complimentary to people and not to be nasty, not to be difficult. But when you're about to put $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 of your hard-earned money on the table that you got to go continue to work for, treat it like it's the most important asset that you have.
Investment.
It's an investment to a degree, but you want to make sure that you're spending your money wisely. Mm-hmm. And you went into the BMW with feelings. You liked it. You were emotional. Being emotional when buying a car, I'm emotional when I look at a Corvette Z06, and I would pay whatever the price on it is if I could ever fit in it. But I would buy one and literally just have it spin around in my garage if I could. But it's just not a necessity. So I have to decide what were my necessities when I bought my vehicle. And I got a kid that's 6'5", 440 pounds. He needed enough room in the back seat to where he didn't his knees weren't stuck on the side in the back of my seat while I'm driving, bumping me up and down the road. That was my pet peeve. So you have to try on, you try on clothes all the time when you go to a store. They don't fit, you take them off and you never buy that brand again. You can't afford to try on a $40,000 SUV. You have to make that decision with all the wisdom in the world. So Honda, in your case, Honda Pilot would be a good option. Unfortunately, you're in that boring car class. There's nothing.
Don't tell me that.
Let's be honest. 4 kids. Everybody has to jump in. Mm-hmm. You have to be away from them jumping in, but you just don't want a minivan. Understandable. So they have to be able to operate everything on their own. Mm-hmm. And that's key. Big trucks, Suburban, stuff like that, they got to climb over seats, la-di-da-di-da. No, you want something when they open up that back door, that back seat moves up so the 2 small ones can get in the back, and the other 2 can get in the front, and everybody knows their routine. So you get a little boring with that. That's when you just crank up the music and order
the sound system.
Get the upgraded sound system so you can tune out the kids. So, or get the DVD entertainment system so they got their headphones on so they can't hear your music.
Right. Oh, because they don't want to hear my music.
These are all the things that I do in my life. So, now we go to Bangladesh and there's bicycles and rickshaws everywhere. That's how they live. You see a rickshaw in Chicago, you're like, hey, let me ride in that just for the fun of it.
Right.
Just around the block, dude. Just around the block. That's it. I'm cool. So Our love affair with cars also creates frustrations. I was working on a car one day and I realized that 4-letter words were invented from fixing anything that had a wheel on it. So, we got to go with what we got to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well, when we come back, we are going to get some takeaways from Mr. Todd Kemp. We'll be back. That's what I told you when I opened the loaner car and then the BMW light came on. I was like, what
it had the logo
this?
on the ground. Yeah. See, I got that in my Toyota. It cost me $11. I don't know how much it cost me BMW.
Okay, we're back here with Dave. My name is Tanya, here with our honest mechanic, Todd Kemp. And he has given us a wealth of information about going to the dealership and not going on emotion like I did, but really do your research and really know what you want in a car. So before we leave for this week, just give us 3 points going to the dealership and getting the right car. 3 points. So when someone walks into the dealership, they'll have this in mind and their emotions will not take over.
Well, you have to have time when you walk into a dealership, first off, because if you do decide to make a purchase, it's going to take quite a few hours to get all the information you need. Secondly, you don't walk in a dealership with your research. You kind of have to memorize that up front. But the thing is, you have to be empowered not to answer the questions that they want you to answer so that they can generate more money from you. The key, don't answer how much you want to pay a month. You take a calculator, you take the price of the vehicle, you divide it by how many months you want to pay. You also want to ask questions, especially if it's a used car. Can you have it independently inspected? What is their time frame for that? Do they have a return policy? Do they have a refund policy? Because a lot of them will have exchange clauses where you have to buy something else on their lot. Unfortunately, they may not have something else you like. Once they get your money, they want to hold on to it. So always be aware of what's going on, but instantly go get that car inspected to make sure that it's safe, sound, that it's no unforeseen wear, because unfortunately, being in the business, there are many ways that you can quiet a squeak or a rattle for just a week. And there are ways to cover up rattles and thunderclatters and boom, boom, boom. So do take it somewhere and take it not to a car shop, because they would be questioned on their reputation. Take it to a reputable dealer who, in a case of if you do have to, unfortunately, sue a dealership for a car purchase that went wrong, they can fill out an affidavit and they can actually prove that what was wrong is wrong and what happened is actually what happened. So you want their reputation. They're putting their reputation online by you paying them $150 or whatever it is to inspect that vehicle. And that's the key right there. Make sure that it's looked over, driven, and understood.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of The Honest Mechanic, and we'll see you next week.